What the fuck is Aura? Well, before it was getting used by streamers, Walter Benjamin, a German Jewish philosopher from the interwar period, used Aura in his analysis of art in the modern age. At the time, photography and film were allowing for the constant reproduction of artworks in a way that had never been done before, allowing for infinite copies to be made of a singular piece of art. Benjamin, in response to this, points out how physical pieces of art that we have in front of us have a certain aura that we experience in their unique presence. And this doesn't necessarily only go out to works of art, it could be natural objects as well, like physically experiencing the presence of what might be called a beautiful mountain range allows us to feel the aura of that mountain range in a way that the mechanical reproduction of that mountain range through photography or through film just doesn't quite get across. Because the unique aura of those objects comes from the unique history and the unique stories which comes along with that object. And Benjamin, back in the 1920s, argued that we as society were experiencing a degrading of aura through photography and film and these mechanical ways of reproducing things, basically destroying the actual unique experience you would have with singular artworks through endless perfect copies, which wasn't necessarily all bad. It did allow for the sharing of these artworks to places that would never have been possible, but it did also mean that we now valued art differently. Art once had a ritualistic value, focused on the uniqueness of the singular object, but started to have an exhibitional value as a commodity, which focused on the aesthetic reproduction of the same artwork over and over again. But in some ways, we now live in even stranger times in an age of digital reproduction, where we're not only even farther away from maybe an object's original aura, but we can't necessarily even trust the authenticity of what we're watching. The idea that we may actually be watching things which have manipulated aura. Something Benjamin mentions in relation to how cinema was also able to represent things in a very controlled manner, but which now feels like an even greater issue. But to think a little bit more about why film was an issue for Benjamin, we can think about how art with paintings and stage and other kind of older art forms were able to contemplate more upon what they were watching, while he believed that film had a more suggestive experience with the masses. This is because film places the audience in the position of the camera, changing our perspective as a viewer. Additionally, film uses angles, focus, set design, lighting, and other techniques to curate this artificial yet accurate scene, while the actor focuses their performance to the camera, rather than producing their own character's material aura in the way that a stage actor has to, who can't necessarily direct their performance towards a single point. Benjamin believed this created a suggestive media, which now was able to interact with us through this infinitely reproducible art form, which could be shown to a mass audience all at the same time, and which might even interact with us on an unconscious level due to the fact that it could become more of a product for distraction. Benjamin argues that our unconscious habits are things which we develop while distracted, that we develop while we're not necessarily actively thinking about things, which you couldn't do with what art was at one stage, in which you were having to be continuously concentrated upon what you were watching and critically thinking about what was happening. And Benjamin, being a German Jew during the interwar period, even being in Germany during the rise of fascism, Benjamin actually believed that fascism was using mechanical reproduction to its advantage. These technologies of reproduction were poorly integrated into society, which was already experiencing an awful lot of hardship with the working class, who were feeling the discomforts of a non-functioning and oppressive property system. Fascism then used the byproduct frustration of these difficulties in society, harness them into a brand of politics which focused very much on aesthetic issues and culminated in this aesthetic gratification of war. And politics of aesthetics loves a medium and loves art forms which can be infinitely reproduced and present it to mass audiences in a suggestive manner, and also possibly attacks them while they're not necessarily thinking about it. Luckily, we don't live in a time where we've seen a new technology which reproduces things very easily, and also sees at the exact same time a property system that doesn't seem to be working for mostly poor and working class people. And we don't also have a set of political leaders who are attempting to cynically take advantage of this to enforce far-right aesthetic politics.